because your experience is international. Cuban people have experience only inside, and the mentality seems fast, but it's not fast because it's Iceland. All life, generation to generation, alimentate only TV.
Good morning, world. Hey, yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy FRE, $H Fresh at the Flyboy Way. That's THEFLYBOYWAY. Don't ask why, just check out the channel. And welcome back to the Black Man's Guide to World Travel. Now, I wouldn't be right if I didn't take this moment out and thank everybody who's been supporting the channel, because, I mean, this is getting to a point where I never thought it would get to. 1 million views on just one video in the Black Man's Guide web series, millions of views across the whole series of this award-winning documentary web series, laurels I'm winning on different contests and stuff. I mean, I started this because I just wanted people to know a different way of life, because history is told from the European perspective, and I feel as though it's not as inclusive of all people of all walks of life. So let's get into the Black Man's Guide to World Travel, Havana, Cuba. Okay, so for those who don't know already, I am a black man from the United States, and if you're from the United States as well, this guide will probably help you out more directly than if you're from another country, because different countries have different laws when it goes to Cuba. Now, as a United States citizen, there are only 14 different ways that you can get a visa to get into Cuba. And guess what? Going as a tourist is not one. The one that I used, and I feel as though would be the easiest to prove if you had to, is support of the Cuban people. Now, the reason why I said is the easiest to prove is because multiple things along the stay that you do is going to fall under the support of the Cuban people. Now, another thing that you must know before deciding to go to Cuba is that in Cuba, there are no ATMs. You cannot use Western Union. To put it in layman terms, as a United States citizen, whatever you take money-wise to Cuba is all that you are going to have. So I would suggest you plan out accordingly and make sure you bring at least $300 to $500 more just in case of emergency. Another thing you want to be very, very knowledgeable about is how the internet works in Cuba. Now, your cell phone, depending on what company you have, may or may not work as far as calls in Cuba. But the data pretty much won't work. So what you're going to have to do is do one of two things. First, before you get to Cuba, you have to go to a website that I will put right here on the screen so that you can register and buy a SIM card for your phone. Now, your phone has to be able to take SIM cards to do this, and this will be the main way that people use the internet. The second way to obtain internet in Cuba would be to buy a hotspot box. Now, basically what a hotspot box is that certain places in Cuba you can go and get internet if you stay in like a park or a certain area of Havana. Now, this I wouldn't suggest because it's something more for the locals, and you really won't be trying to go to just these spots all the time. So I would just say get the SIM card, because that will work a lot better. As I do on all the Black Man Guide to World Travels, I'm going to put a time on the screen right here where I'm going to start talking about the women of Habana and Varadero, Cuba. So if you're a woman, a man, or anything in between that does not want to hear that part, please stop the video at the time that I'm pointing to on the screen right now. Okay, now we're going to get into the Cuban currency, the CUP. Now, before I give you an idea of what the exchange is like, let me first go to my friends and have them give you a detailed look into what the Cuban currency is like.
Un peso cubano, 5 pesos cubanos, 1000 pesos cubanos, y 500 pesos cubanos.
Okay, I'm back. Now, this exchange is as of May 2023. So you might want to check online to see before you go. The most important thing, however, is to know never exchange your money in the airport, because they're going to give you a significantly worse exchange rate than anywhere else in Cuba you go. As of May 2023, the exchange rate goes as follows. For €1, you get 190 Cuban pesos. And for $1, you get 185 Cuban pesos. And this is when you go anywhere else pretty much outside of the airport. One of the best things about Cuba is that it is one of the least expensive places, if not the least expensive country I've ever been to. So if you're going for a week, I feel as though you can actually live a pretty good life in Cuba and have fun for only $500. But remember, you want to bring another $300 to $500 more to make sure you have as an emergency cost. Okay, as a United States citizen, when it comes to selecting a place to stay in Cuba, you must know this. You cannot stay in government-run hotels or go to government-run stores. You must stay in a casa particular or a Airbnb. Now, what a casa particular is a place or home that a family has, but they give you access to a room. Now, when you stay at a casa particular, sometimes it's a little better because you can get to meet the actual people, as well as they sometimes give you food and they can tell you more about the area. However, you will not get as much freedom to yourself as if you stay at an Airbnb. Now, if you're going to Varadero, it's going to be a little bit different, because even though on Airbnb they'll say that you'll have the entire place to yourself, odds are there will be an owner or someone watching the house in another room that's close but maybe separate from your rooms. What I'm going to do next is give you a couple different activities I did, all of which fall under the support of the Cuban people. So where it may seem like a tourist thing, it still fits the qualifications that you need to go. Now, the first activity I did was go to the Afro-Cubano community of Hamel El Hamen. Now, I might be pronouncing this wrong. My apologies if I am, but this is the second time I went, and every time I go, I enjoy being in the community and seeing what it's really like as a Cuban, and getting the culture and getting to actually pass out and give things to the people. What would Havana be without driving in an old school car? The second activity that we did was we rented a car, and it's about $40 an hour to get a good price. I rented it through a connection I had, someone I met the first time I was in Cuba, and this experience was amazing. I got to see so many different parts of Cuba that I'd never seen the first time I was there or the times I've been there, as far as like the Christ the Redeemer statue, as far as different viewpoints, and even went down to central Havana. Where we stopped and got some amazing food. One of the great things that Cuba is known for is the music and the dancing and the salsa. And one of the nights we were there, they had a big concert right down the street from our Airbnb off of the Malecón. The best part about activities like this is that the people, even if you're from another country, they welcome you in their culture. I mean, honestly, as a black person, I felt like I blended in. Like, everyone pretty much, and it's going to sound crazy, they kind of look like me. So it wasn't like any disparity between black and white, but it just was the Cuban culture. And you know, porque yo hablo español, because I speak Spanish, I was able to like really understand and really get a feel of what it felt like to, you know, be one with them. Now, the first time I went to Cuba, I would say the food wasn't the greatest, but there was a place called FAC. Fabrica del Arte Cubano, which was a big art museum that turned into a nightclub slash live band slash live performances, ballet, and everything at nighttime. However, when I went this time in May, it was closed for reconstruction. So the food I was tasting wasn't the best in Havana. However, I went to this one restaurant and it blew my mind. To this day, it is the best food I've had in Havana. The name of the restaurant was El Bicky. Now, when I was in El Bicky, I never expected it to be so update, modern, and everyone, the waitresses and everyone and waiters was dressed in sharp outfits, and the service was A1. So if you're going to Havana, I would suggest going to El Bicky at least one night. Now the price was pretty decent for us, about $20 for a meal for 2 people. But in Cuba, that is considered a lot of money for the locals. Okay, the last activity that I'm going to tell you guys about is when my friend and I took a overnight trip to Varadero, Cuba. Now, for those that don't know, Varadero, Cuba is the more touristic part of Cuba, but it is about 2.5 hours drive all the way from Havana. Now, going there costs $130 because right now there is somewhat of a gas crisis in Cuba. It's very difficult to get this done, so make sure you plan in advance if you're trying to go to Varadero, Cuba. Now, before we got to Varadero, Cuba, we stopped by the highest point that's accessible in Cuba.
Mirado de Bacunaga. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but I'm saying Mirado de Bacunagua.
Again, my apologies for butchering this name, but this was one of the most amazing places I've seen while in Cuba. It was so high in the clouds, and you got such an amazing view, and then the eagle swooped down. It was a little bit crazy, but it was a definitely needed trip, and a definitely needed stop in this 2.5 hour journey. Finally, we got to Varadero, and when we got to the Airbnb on the water, it was amazing, an amazing Airbnb. I definitely suggest that if you want to go somewhere and maybe you're going with company, you should stay at this Airbnb because it's right where you want to be. Okay, now we're going to get into the nightlife of Varadero and Havana, Cuba. Since we're in Varadero already, let me begin with the nightlife in Varadero. In Varadero, the biggest, most known club is outside of the Continental Hotel, and it's called the Continental Cabaret. And when I went in this club, when I say it surprised me, it fully surprised me. If you go by other content creators and people who have done documentaries on Cuba in the past, you will believe that everyone in Cuba was poor. This was completely blown out of the water when it came to the Continental Cabaret. When I went inside the Continental Cabaret, you had Cubans who went to college over there. You had Cubans who had jewelry on, name brand clothes. This was what I consider the upper economical class of Cubans, a part of Cuba that is not seen anywhere online. And I felt as though I had to bring it to you.
Bienvenido la gente de Ciencia América, ¿dónde está? Bienvenido por supuesto a la gente de la Universidad Una Bulla. Bienvenidos todos, bienvenido a la gente de Cárdenas que está por acá como siempre, gracias una vez más. Señoras y señores, so ladies and gentlemen, good evening everybody, welcome to the Continental Cabaret.
After we left the Continental Cabaret, we decided to go to Havana Club in Varadero. Now, Havana Club is more for the tourists, and you'll see like a lot of older folks there, and you'll see, a couple scattered locals, but not a lot because it costs money also to get inside the Havana Club. Now, at this time, my friend Blades and Bars went back to the Airbnb to get some sleep, but I wasn't tired. And while I was at the Havana Club, I met this amazing Afro-Cubana woman who said, hey, there's a club in a town 30 minutes from here called Santa Marta, and the name of the club is called Mamma Mia's, and this club was rocking. Now, this is the type of club that I like to go to because they played a lot of hip hop, they played reggaeton, they played dembo, and it was such an amazing vibe. And this club was where you would see the younger crowd between the ages of 20 and about maybe 35. So it was definitely a vibe when I went inside there, and I was able to meet an amazing group of people who we just partied the night around. Okay, now when it comes to nightlife in Havana, Cuba, I'm going to give you a name of all of the clubs that I went to and then focus on the top 3 that I really enjoyed. Now, the name of the clubs that I went to goes as following. I went to Johnny Club, LM, Mio y Tuyo, Lo Encuentro, Illusions, King Bar, and I went to a club called 2.45. Now, out of all of these clubs, the top 3 clubs for me, in any order pretty much, was LM, 2.45, and Mio y Tuyo. Okay, and now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the women of Habana and Varadero, Cuba. Okay, in this section, I will be giving you my perspective from my experience in Havana and Varadero, Cuba. Factual based on my experiences may not be factual based on your experiences. Now, when it comes to talking about the women of Cuba, I must say there is 2 different parts that we have to talk about. There is the pro section and the non-pro section. In my opinion, when it comes to talking about the non-pros of Havana, Cuba, it is very important that if you want to converse and get time with a non-pro, you're going to need to speak the language. You don't have to necessarily know the culture. It does help if you can dance, but if you know the language, you'll have a better time getting to know the non-pros who are in the age range of 19 and 34. Here's the thing. A lot of people go to Cuba and they say, hey, it's very easy to get non-pros. You just have to try. In my experience, if you are looking to get non-pros, then you're most likely looking at a woman that's going to be 34 years old or higher. Because most of the women who are young, they're ambitious, they look good, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get their attention and keep it on a non-pro level if you don't speak the language. Now, since Cuba is just getting major access to the internet, there's not going to be much pre-gaming you can do. However, if you do want to pre-game before you get to Havana, you have 2 options that I know work pretty well. The first option is Badu. Now, the thing about Badu is that you have to kind of be in the area when you use it. And there are going to be more pros on Badu than non-pros. Here's my advice if you want to pregame what to do. On Instagram, you're able to search the different locations of the bars that I named in this video. You will then be able to go into the bar pictures and click on the pictures you like. You then send a follow request or a DM, and you'll be able to pregame before you get there. In my experience, Tinder in Cuba doesn't really work well. You won't get a lot of matches because as of 2023, there still isn't a lot of knowledge about Tinder. But in the future, this may change. So why not try that as well? Hey yo, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy FRE, $H Fresh at the Flyboy Way, all platforms. I know y'all looking like, hey yo, what is Flyboy doing? I know there's another part to these videos. Yes, but unfortunately I had to put them behind the paywall because my #1 video, The Black Man's Got to Cartagena, was taken off. And you guys know when I like to tell a story, I like to tell a story the way it is. I don't like to hold stuff back that others may find offensive. And unfortunately, we cannot do that anymore on most platforms. So until I create my website, I had to put all of the rest of the guides that you're going to see in the full version behind the membership. Eventually, I will create a website, and it will be free just for the guides. I have about 12 different guides right now, or 15 different guides right now. I don't know, a lot. So you can subscribe to the membership. I made it only $5 because I think that stops it from being a major issue with YouTube. It's, I guess, something that we kind of worked out. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope this helped you. That's the reason why I made these videos PG and put them back on for the whole public to see, because I think with information comes safety. And if you get the information, it can help you stay safe when you travel the world. It's your boy FRE, $H Fresh at the Flyboy Way. That's THEFLYBOYWAY. Don't ask why, just check out the channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.